Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 161, which is called The Castle of Nightmares. I thought this was a solid episode. I didn't think it was anything particularly impressive. Once again, just an episode that plays its own role within the arc. I still think this arc has a lot of potential, but this was definitely one of those kind of middle of the road episodes, just where sort of it feels like we're in the sort of filling in time mode at this point in the arc where we're extending stuff way more than it needs to. But it did introduce some interesting elements, I think, mainly with regards to the quadruplets kind of coming back into things and playing a bigger role. And they're like, oh, I'm actually kind of interested in what they're up to now. Whereas they felt like very like, oh, are they just in this one episode to do this thing? But no, it seems like they're now becoming the focus a little bit, while we still have the Kara set up with like Victor and Deepa in the background, which I think is probably the main thing everyone is waiting for, to address those sort of more low-key Kara members who aren't really covered much in the manga, and get the important stuff with them to build into the core of the Kara arc, which is covered in the manga, of course. Yeah, but this episode, like, basically what happens in it is that after this incident on the bridge, Konohamaru uses the one vial of Mitsuki antibodies that they have to heal the butler from the Hashirama cells, and he brings them back to the castle of his employer, who is revealed to be Lady Sakuya, who I actually thought it was kind of an interesting explanation here of like, okay, she is the one who has ultimately managed to procure the Hashirama cell, and the reason she wants it is that she is growing old. She's going to, I suppose, die soon, and she hates how she looks as an old woman, so she wants to restore her youth and live forever, kind of, basically. And that's all she sees it as. She doesn't see the actual potential of the cell like a lot of the other characters will see it as. And so it's more of a kind of petty reason to want it, but you know, still it's a kind of character motivation here. And so, you know, it's a lot of, at this point of the episode, just kind of setting up that, like, oh, we can't go straight in. Like, the butler's being very coy with them about, like, you know, no, you have to test it out here first. And he seemingly traps them, but then Boruto reveals, oh, it was just a shadow clone that he had sent in. And so Boruto is sent to get the Hashirama cell on his own, which is when he encounters the quadruplets, who basically frame him for the assassination of Sakuya, and then kill the butler, and then go outside and blame the Leaf ninja for doing this. So I thought it was actually very clever tactics from the quadruplets, of just something we don't see too often, is that sort of scheming style of ninja, where it's just like they leave Boruto in this situation where it clearly looks like he was the one who assassinated Sakuya, but we know he's innocent. And then the cleverness of, like, they're escaping, they have the Hashirama cells in their hands, but they're telling everyone that, like, Sakuya in the castle has just been assassinated, go there. They cause a riot and kind of create the perfect escape. And it just means that the Leaf ninja in this case have been completely outsmarted. And it sets up that next week's episode is going to sort of be like, how do we escape from this mob? So I don't have a ton of confidence about next week's episode, just because, like, if they were clever about it, all they have to do is have Konohamaru and Boruto transform into, like, one of the dead guards, hide the bodies, and then just, like, they're free, they're out. I don't know if they're necessarily going to do that. They're probably going to make more of an incident out of it. So that's another reason why you can sort of tell they're in this sort of, like, we're probably going to get a few episodes in a row like this where not a ton particularly happens in terms of, like, the importance of this arc, and we're just kind of, you know, spin our wheels a little bit here in the middle of the arc. This happens from time to time. This is, like, typically the case with a lot of the kind of Boruto kind of bigger arcs that they do that aren't in the manga, where its core ideas are actually really, really interesting. They just take a little bit too much time to, like, execute them. Whereas if they had tightened it up a little bit on the writing side of things, they'd be really, really enjoyable arcs. And it's just like you have episodes like this and what looks to be the next one potentially, unless they really make it fun and exciting, that aren't going to be the greatest episodes. Because I think we want to get back to Victor. We want to see what Deepa is about. And like if there is anything else going on with Yubina and the girl, like, you know, they mention here in the episode that the reason the little girl was kind of has the Hashirama cells is because they sort of tested it on her first to see what would happen. And so she seems to just be a random little girl who was kind of infected and like used by Sakuya. But the fact that they're lingering on that scene a little bit that we saw with Mitsuki, Yubina, and the girl, of like, okay, she's gonna wait to thank him, but is there anything more to that? And like, obviously, you sort of are like, am I meant to be suspicious of Yubina or not? It seemed like they got past that, and it's just like she has sort of a little bit of a sadistic quirk, but is actually sort of relatively kind-hearted. She just has a thing about pain. You know, they could bring it together, and I think usually the way these work is that it actually comes together relatively nicely in the end. And if we're going to have potentially a big fight against, I assume Deepa will be the main one to be the focus, as like the Kara member here, with Victor being we'll get stuff with Victor to set up what's coming, but that's what we're waiting for. And I think beyond that, it was just like, okay, fair enough. Like, you know, you had Mugine and Sarada just staying on the sidelines, and we'll maybe see them act to help Konohamaru and Boruto in the next episode. But yeah, there just wasn't a lot that was that interesting in this one. Like I said, I think the main things about it were that I actually thought just the very basic sort of story of just Sakuya, why she wants the cell, was actually like somewhat interesting, just to restore her youth, and the whole dynamic of like her, you know, having all the cracked mirrors in her castle because she doesn't want to look at herself. That's, you know, for a minor character who's here just to be killed, that was at least some motivation. And then I actually like the way they presented the quadruplets of like, oh, they're actually like being very like clever and skillful here in what they're doing. I'm not getting the immediate impression that they're incredibly powerful, because they don't really do that much outside of throw some poison kunais, but it could lead to some nice fights, like, you know, potentially Boruto and Sarada versus like 2 or 3 of the quadruplets or something like that, depending on how powerful they actually are. It could be an interesting fight when we get to it, but not really in this episode. So yeah, very much a setup episode here, but it's fine. I'm not going to overly criticize this episode when it is just telling this section of the arc. As ever, the writing could always be just a little bit tighter, but we're building towards canon content, and the overall arc here is decent, so there's not too much to complain about. So yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.